One Piece chapter 1034, Sanji vs Queen. Now this chapter for the most part was entirely composed of this fight. There was a bit of deviation in the beginning where we got to see Momo and how he's doing, but nothing much substantial happened there. But this chapter does answer some questions that we had beforehand about certain things, specifically about the situation Sanji had before in which he supposedly hurt this geisha girl, right? And we'll talk more about that later in this video. We also get to see new attacks from Sanji towards the end, so that was pretty cool. But overall, this chapter was pretty short, and again, when you have chapters that compose of a battle in its entirety, it tends to move really fast, and that's what I think happened here with this chapter, at least in my experience anyways. But before we keep going, guys, I'd appreciate it if you dropped a like on this video, hit the bell if you want to get notified for future content. Now the chapter pretty much starts off in the pleasure hall in which we come to see Osome, and Osome being the girl that Sanji supposedly hurt. And apparently it would seem that everyone here has realized that the island may not last as long because of the amount of destruction that's taking place, and they are desperately looking for a way to escape. Osome on the other hand is looking for Chuji, which later on we come to find out that that is her pet mouse. And with Osome we finally get a reveal as to what really happened between her and Sanji, because later on we get the reveal that Sanji wasn't actually the person that hurt her, it was actually Queen's doing. So Sanji didn't actually lose himself, Queen was simply playing mind games with Sanji. And this is very interesting because Sanji's initial portrayal was that he was responsible for hitting Osome, but now we know that wasn't true, and later he comes to take on the role of the individual that saves her. So there's that juxtaposition there. Now moving on to Wano here briefly, it would seem that he's finally found a way to thwart Onigashima from landing on Wano, as prior to this he wasn't capable of creating flame clouds on the scale of Kaido, which makes a lot of sense because Momo is still an amateur with his fruit. Though we do know that Kaido is weakening, as we do see that his flame clouds aren't holding the island firmly anymore, as we do see that some parts of the island is starting to fall off. So Momo came to the realization that he might as well just grab onto Kaido's flame clouds and steer it away from Wano, which seems to be working for now, but we don't necessarily know how long, because we know it's eventually going to come to a point where Momo would need to actually produce his own flame clouds, because it would seem that Kaido is going to run out of energy, and when that happens Onigashima is going on a free fall. And even if it doesn't hit the capital, we do have a lot of allies on Onigashima itself, so someone is going to have to make Onigashima land safely somewhere after everything is done with, and the only person that has the potential of that right now is Momonosuke. So we'll see what happens with that. Now moving on to Sanji versus Queen. Now the battle starts off with Queen using laser beam attacks, which we have seen him use before, but in this particular case he names it Sparking Queen, and Sanji was surprised about this because he wasn't aware that Queen could actually shoot lasers from his eyes. And this obviously reminded him of Ichiji, because Ichiji had the same type of ability, and so Queen then attacks him again, and this time he attacks with electricity, which is the first that we've seen from Queen. And at this point it was very obvious that he was using the skill sets of the Wind Smokes. It also turns out that he was also capable of using the invisibility of Sanji's Stealth Black. Now initially I thought this was very random with Queen seemingly having these abilities out of nowhere, but then you go back to previous scenes and chapters with Queen in which we do see him using Yonji's ability on his neck, which sort of allowed him to sort of turn his body into like a spring. And that always confused me because I wasn't exactly sure what that was, and it would seem that Oda already set this up back then. Initially I just took it as Queen having modified his body, and I didn't think it had any connections to the Wind Smokes, even though it was very weird. But it would seem that the spring type effect that he has with his neck when he's using his devil fruit seems to be Yonji's ability. And it does seem that Oda is pushing this Sanji fighting his past a lot in this fight, because at every corner of this battle it would seem that he's always going up against his family in some way, shape or form. It started out with the raid suit, and now it looks like he's essentially fighting his siblings, right? So I do find it a bit weird that Queen has all these abilities, but then again we do know that Judge was affiliated with Queen, and it does seem that there is some level of competition between Queen and Judge, because we do see here that Queen views his tech as being superior to that of Judge. Therefore Queen replicating it here shows that Judge's tech wasn't that impressive in the first place, and this is the reason why he was so fixated on wanting Sanji to wear the raid suit, because he wanted to prove that his technology was better. So again, with Sanji versus Queen, so far it seems like the majority of it is Sanji essentially fighting his past. Obviously we know that he's found the resolve to move past it when he destroyed the raid suit, but now it's more so of him actually defeating his past, if that makes any sense. Now in terms of the battle itself, so far I would give Sanji the edge because he's been very dominant so far, or at least it's been very equal in terms of exchange. But I will say that I am not really that impressed with Queen so far, because he hasn't really done anything, or there's really nothing crazy about him yet, at least in comparison to what we've seen with King. And we know that in terms of portrayal, Queen and King are sort of in the same playing field, obviously King being the superior one, but Oda puts these two together, even when you take their names into account, right? Queen and King. So I am hoping that we do get to see more things about him, because so far I'm not really that impressed. I will say that his tech is obviously top tier, probably some of the best things we've seen about Queen, but in terms of fighting ability, I'm not sure if he's up there yet. And I wonder if this is partly due to him focusing on Sanji being Judge's son more so than Sanji being an actual threat, right? Perhaps that's the reason why he isn't showing everything. He's more willing to show that he's superior to Judge than actually defeating Sanji. Now on Sanji's side, we do see that he's clearly incorporating the use of his Iron Body in conjunction with Armament Haki as well as Diable Jambe, as well as considering his speed into account. He's putting everything together to form a very powerful technique. So we're seeing here that his attack power is finally taking shape. What is also interesting is that he's able to augment the level of Diable Jambe into Ifrit Jambe, which produces flames that are much hotter and stronger, and this is only possible because he's using ornament and his exoskeleton as a way to enhance his body in order to maintain it. And it would seem that this form of Diable Jambe also possesses some sort of lightning qualities or lightning effect, perhaps because of the use of Haki in conjunction with, Ifrit Jambe. I also do want to mention that Queen almost confuses Sanji's speed for invisibility here. Now, we've known Sanji to be extremely fast, but his speed is obviously on a whole different level. I would like to imagine that Queen has observation Haki, but even then Queen is unable to track Sanji. And we do see that even Queen using Stealth Black, it doesn't really matter to Sanji because he can use observation Haki to sense his presence. So that obviously wasn't going to work on Sanji, and towards the end here we get Sanji using all sorts of different attacks on Queen, and it would seem that he ended off his combo with a new attack that we haven't seen before called Buff Burst. And again, as I mentioned before, this new level of Diable Jambe does have a lightning effect, so I wonder what's going on there. I think it's probably because of his use of ornaments in conjunction, because this is definitely not the norm that we usually see for Diable Jambe, right? I do wonder if we're actually going to get the black flames that's been theorized for such a long time. I wonder if that's going to be a possibility moving forward, especially if he takes his Armament Haki to a new level. I could definitely see that happening. But overall, I'm really impressed with Sanji's abilities in this chapter, but I think there's definitely more to not only Sanji, but also Queen. It does feel like this fight hasn't really taken off yet, we haven't hit that gear yet, so I think there's definitely more to look forward to. We're getting closer, but it's definitely not there yet. But that's pretty much it for this video, guys. I'd appreciate it if you dropped a like on this video, comment down below what you guys think, subscribe for more One Piece content on this channel. You can follow me on Twitter at @FerrisSpace, but it is fair, guys, and I will see you folks later. Peace.